Welcome to Ohio's BIOS, an insight into local government here in Ohio. I'm David Thomas and serve as County Auditor for Ashtabula County in Northeast Ohio. Local government impacts each of us every day, but how much do we really know about the organizations and the people who make everyday life possible? Join me as I speak with the leaders in local government making a difference in our communities every day. So my guest today is Alex Iarocci. He's the Executive Director for the Ashtabula County Landbank. And we're going to talk about his experience leading the land bank, his path to get there, which is a little bit unique from most other county land banks and folks in the professional realm for this type of work. And we're going to talk about the challenges and kind of opportunities that land banks have across the state, but especially here in Ashtabula County. So Alex, thank you so much for taking the time today. It's our lunch breaks, and we're not eating lunch. We're going to talk a little bit. So thanks for coming and for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely, David. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's just get right into it. How about, I just said that your background or how you got to your position was a little bit unique. And full disclosure, Alex used to work in our office here in the auditor's office, and we shared him for a bit, and then he went across the hall. I'm not going to say the dark side because you're actually more light than we are. So tell us about kind of your background and then get into what actually is a land bank.
Sure. So I'll start by saying that I was born and raised in Ashtabula City. I went to St. John for all 12 years of schooling.
One of our local private high schools.
Yep. Then I went to Case Western Reserve with the intent of being a software engineer. I switched my major to English during orientation. I had the plan of either being a documentary filmmaker or an English professor.
Interesting. I knew you were an English major, but I didn't know. Okay.
So I switched my major to English.
Okay.
Yep. Then I graduated in 2014. I took a gap year, which was when I was planning on taking applying to graduate school. I then changed my mind, and I saw that a position was opened at the county auditor's office for a database specialist. I applied on a whim, not knowing anything what the county auditor did at the time. And I was fortunate enough to get the job, and I've been involved with the county government ever since in 2016.
And that job, so full disclosure too, was all, and it's kind of morphed, and I know it grew quite a bit since we started here in 2019. Yep. But for an English major, then that was kind of the nuts and bolts of all of our technical side with the auditor's office, kind of the financial aspects of data crunching and statistics and all things kind of systems related. Yep. So that's quite a unique jump there.
Yeah, it was. And I loved working here at the county auditor's office just because of the variety of tasks that I would do on a day-to-day basis. Like you said, it could be one day you would be crunching numbers, the next day be making like a web application, the next day would be speaking with some property owners. So yeah, just like the variety. And I think that's what ultimately led me into working for the county land bank. And so if we could take a step back, in 2020, I decided to enroll at Cleveland State University to get my master's in urban planning. And that's what set me up for the county land bank job.
Yeah. So what is the land bank?
Yeah. So in one sentence, we are a nonprofit that aims to restore vacant and abandoned and blighted properties back to productive use. And when we say productive use, that means a multitude of things. But the first and foremost is getting a property back on the active property tax rolls. Could also mean advancing a specific community's goals, could be generating economic development, and it could be jump-starting the local housing market in a neighborhood.
So 2020, you thought good to go kind of more of the policy route, because here you were very technical. Yeah. And that kind of sparked your interest in policy. Yep. So 2020 you did that, and then remind me, was it 2022, last year? So you've been in the role now for a year.
Yep. My anniversary date was, I think, the first week of April.
Yeah.
So just past.
Did you get a candy bar like we do here?
No, we went out to lunch though.
Oh, that's even better. Never mind. So in your year, have been some of the things that you've been doing as executive director, and do you think, kind of going back a year into some of your thoughts of here's my goals, here's my plans, how's that worked out?
So the first year has been mostly me getting my sea legs. A lot of financial management, which I had no experience doing. And then just a lot of the day-to-day operation stuff. I don't think I really truly appreciated how much time that would take for me and for me to get accustomed with that. So I feel like I'm in a good place now where I can start branching out and trying to create some of our new initiatives and taking more of a active role in project management. So far it's been, some points it's been a little rocky, but I feel like I'm hitting my stride now.
So the podcast is Insights from Ohio's Local Governments, but as you said, the Land Bank is a nonprofit.
Yep.
So you guys are kind of like a weird stepchild, but your office is actually in the treasurer's office, and you only have one staff member, right?
Yep, just me.
For the Land Bank, but you work for the treasurer, but you also work for the board. So kind of describe what's the setup like?
So technically we are a civic improvement corporation as defined by the Ohio Revised Code, but we are also designed to function like a nonprofit. And the reason for that is because when the Ohio legislature created county land banks back in 2011, I believe.
Sounds about right, yeah.
The intent was to create a specific organization that could deal with all of the foreclosures that were coming down after the '08 financial crisis. And there's just a lot of advantages for having like a nonprofit structure, meaning that we don't have to abide by a lot of the normal bureaucratic hoops that you have to jump through. But yes, so I report to a board of directors. There's 7 members on the board, the 3 county commissioners, the county treasurer, what else is, the city manager of the highest population. At this point, it's Ashtabula City. A representative from the township, that's the Plymouth Township trustee, Deb Friedstrom. And the 7th member is a real estate professional, which is Janice Dorston.
So nice variety. You guys meet monthly.
Yep.
So you got a lot of flexibility then. And so kind of talk about the things, people call our office or call the treasurer's office all the time and say, hey, there's this dilapidated house out here. No one's paying taxes on it. What can we do? And our offices can't do anything, but then we refer them over to you. So what do you do?
The first point is I make clear to everybody that we can't intervene until a property becomes forfeited. And that happens that's at the tail end of the foreclosure process, right? So after a property has been referred to a tax foreclosure by the county treasurer, it would then work its way through that foreclosure proceeding. Usually that would take 8 to 10 months, if not longer. It would then be ordered to go to a sale by the county sheriff or by the county auditor, like at a vacant land sale. And it would have to be up for sale at least 2 separate times. After that is when it would become forfeited. Then that is when the land bank can intervene and take title to the property. So it's always a waiting game, though. I've had countless conversations with people who have called inquiring about a property next door to them, and most of the time the answer is it's underway through the foreclosure process. In some extreme examples, it's been over 10 years. So, and that can be frustrating for obviously both the interested party, but for the land bank as well, because we have to wait for all those processes to play out. And it's important that they do play out because that is still somebody's property, right, that you're asking about. And Ohio's very protective, and understandably so, of property rights. So that is really what it comes down to, is just making sure that all of those legal processes play out and before the land bank can help out. So most of the time I'm just educating folks about how the legal process works.
So where do you guys get your funding then? If you're nonprofit, quasi-private, public, who actually funds, and then what do you spend it on?
Yeah, so our main source comes from a special fund here at the county called the Delinquent Taxes and Assessment Charges Fund, or the DTAC fund, and that is comprised of penalties and interest from delinquent taxpayers. We get 3% of that each year. Usually amounts to about $140,000 per year. So I like to tell people that delinquent taxpayers in the county, in essence, they're the primary funders of the county land bank.
Which makes sense, because then you're trying to essentially work with them. So it's a fee for service directly tied to.
Yep.
Nice.
And then another source of funding that we get is by property sales. So when we sell property, usually that doesn't amount to very much. When we sell side lots to people, we only charge $100. If it's not a side lot, we would then look at the auditor's market value to establish the fair market value of the property. And then the third way would be a restricted revenue source in the form of grants, right? Either from federal, state, or local sources. And by local, it would be like local philanthropic organizations.
Because you guys were kind of known, I think, for a while there, and you might be getting back into it as kind of the demo people.
Yeah.
And that's probably where most of the grant money came from.
Yep.
That's expensive, right?
It's very expensive. Yeah, an average residential demolition is about $20,000.
And if you're doing a couple hundred of them, that really adds up. And you're really one of the only ones that can take a home, because it's expensive. No one's just going to go off the street and demolish a home to then just let it sit there. So you take it, you demolish it, clean up the title, and then transfer it over to make it productive.
Nice.
That's
the goal.
You're professional cleaners. So kind of a lot of people don't know about the land bank. So this question is kind of a little bit, but what do you think would be something that folks would be most surprised at learning about, or they still have no clue about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when it comes to describing what we do at the land bank, I always tell people, I feel like we all do this, where when you're driving around your community, if I ask anybody, there's always that one property that they know of right off the top of their head. Like, I wonder what's going on with that property on the corner of so-and-so street, or is somebody ever going to build something on this empty lot here? Well, those are the type of questions that I ask myself on a daily basis, and I work with our municipal partners with on a daily basis, is trying to answer those questions. So I think that is probably the best way to describe what we do at the land bank. And wait, what was the second part of the question?
So, like, what would people be surprised at?
What would be surprised at? So I think my first answer to that is that we are a nonprofit.
Well, yeah, it's
right? Like,
your actual founding.
Yeah. And, by the way, we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary.
I think you should have a party.
We are. Yeah, so, yes, I'm glad I just remembered that. So our anniversary is going to be on Monday, March 22nd, and we're having a small 1-hour event here at the courthouse in the courtyard.
Next year?
This
so May 20th.
Yeah, like a month from now.
I think it's in March. Okay, May.
No, yep, May 22nd. It's going to be at 4:30.
Okay.
We're going to have light refreshments, and then there'll be a couple speeches where we'll recap our past activities and what's in store for the future.
So I think people would be really surprised, and they'd be neat to see, for you to show all the different changes of what's really happened with your grant funding and with the actions taken just to help clean up a lot of the properties, not just in the city of Ashtabula, but across the county.
Right.
Yeah. So that'd be cool. That'd be fun. So now, what do you think? What is a successful day in the land bank? Or what is kind of, if you were to end a project, what marks as successful?
I think I would probably point to our most recent highly visible project, and that would be the demolition of the old St. John High School. Right?
That's big.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't know that you guys were involved in that.
Yeah, so we helped assemble the site. That project was on, I believe it was on 12 different parcels. So those parcels had been chronically delinquent since the school closed in 2012. They racked up over $100,000 in delinquent taxes, which would prevent any sort of development deal or development project happening on that site. So what we did was we acquired those parcels who all had been forfeited. They had all been forfeited, I believe, back in 2018 or 2019.
Pre-COVID.
And we took title at a fraction of the cost, And by doing so, we extinguished all the liens that were on those properties. So we were able to consolidate them together and advertise a free and clear title to a potential developer. In this case, it was Ashtabula Area City Schools, who was looking for a site for a new transit hub. And they were relocating their transit facility, which was out in, I think it was off on Gerald Road.
Yeah.
So they're relocating that and bringing their main bus terminal back to that site.
So that's a great example of, if it had not been for the land bank, that property would still, just because it's so financially unfeasible, given its location, it still would be dilapidating a place for folks to live in, unfortunately, and just not a good property.
Right. And that project for me, it was also slightly personal, just because I said at the beginning that that's where I went to school. So not only that, most of my family had also went to school there. So, it was an interesting Thanksgiving this year because
you tore it down.
Yeah. But it was ultimately I think it was a really good outcome for the community because the building was in such bad shape.
Yeah.
It was in terrible shape.
Yeah.
And now to get rid of that and fix the built environment for that community, I think it will go a long way.
Very good. That's a great example, visual one that most folks in our area for sure will know. Now, what do you think is the purpose, even though you're not government, what do you think is the purpose of government?
Yeah, so for me, I think the first thing to say is the reason why I love working for the county government is because it's just such a tremendous privilege, and I think it carries a really big responsibility. And I think the purpose of county government is to make sure that we provide all of the essential services that our residents expect. But not only that, but we have to do so in a fair and fiscally sustainable way. And for me, I always define sustainable or fiscally sustainable in this case to be preserving the current quality of life for our residents and actively working on improving it in a way that doesn't jeopardize our future generations. So that's what, to me, how I see county government.
Very nice. All about service.
Yeah.
And doing the different and things that you guys do in your department may not be stuff that folks directly kind of interact with or see. You're not, fire department or different things, but you lead to that. And then you make a lot of people happy with tearing down buildings, transferring side lots. So, and that's helping direct people as well, which is nice. Yeah, awesome. Now, how do you interact with other local governments or just governments in general?
Yeah, so we work pretty much hand in hand with all of our local governments.
Because you couldn't really do things by yourself.
Right. And not only that, we want to make sure that we work harmoniously with them. We're not in a position where we want to dictate like a potential development project. Again, going back to the St. John example, we made sure that the city was fully on board with that. And that is the method that we embrace for all of our projects. We want to make sure that we're mindful of the community's goals and their long-term strategy. And then when it comes to acquiring potential properties, we also work very closely to make sure that if there's an opportunity to get any forfeited properties, that we want to make sure that we make sure that those municipalities are aware that they're coming available. And help them acquire them.
So it sounds like communication is a big piece of how you interact, but also money too.
Yeah.
Because you guys, the grants come from the feds and the states, and you interact then with kind of pairing monies together at the local level too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of coordination then.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. So when you said day-to-day operations, that can be quite a bit. And you're dealing with, for example, your most recent grant that you guys applied for and got. How many different properties does that touch?
So the initial grant was for 34 properties across 4 jurisdictions: Conneaut, Ashtabula, Geneva, and Rome Township.
And how much?
We got $609,000.
Wow. So just, to put that in perspective, if our county was going to do that, $609,000 is a huge chunk of our county budget. It'd be impossible.
Yeah.
So you make that all kind of come together, which is exciting. So now what do you think, just in terms of, you're celebrating 10 years this year. So next 5 years, so take that in half. What is the goal? What's the future look like?
I hope that we're growing in size and scope. I also hope that think you mentioned it a little bit ago, that traditionally we have been very demolition oriented.
Mm-hmm.
We've demolished just over 270 structures to date in the last 10 years. We've only rehabbed 4. So we've renovated 4 single-family houses over the last 10 years. But for me, I would like to see us expand our single-family rehabilitation program. And the main reason for that is in 2020, we had a residential market survey conducted.
Mm-hmm.
The results came back and they showed us that across the county, we have a 15% vacancy rate, which is extremely high. But I would caution that that number is a little inflated because of a lot of the seasonal offerings, right? Like that would include a lot of like cottages, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So while that's not the true number, it's still concerning. So when you have an empty house that's sitting there on top of a vacancy problem and a housing affordability issue, we want to make sure that we're preserving the housing stock as best as we can, and basically have demolition be the last resort.
Because it takes a lot less money to rehab a structure than to tear it down, build a new one. Yeah. And if we're having a housing shortage anyway, that makes a lot of sense. Right. So kind of more of a full focus. Yeah, right. Especially in our, the study looked at our 3 primary market areas of Geneva, Ashtabula, and Conneaut. Another thing that was surprising me, the home ownership rate was only around 50%. So if we can help fix some of these blighted structures and turn them into owner-occupied housing, that would also further our goals. Yeah, we're definitely a heavy rental in the cities. Even, I think you expand that out to the townships and that becomes more like 35-40%. But still, that's a huge number when you're looking at, different kind of progresses that you want to make down the road. So that makes a lot of sense in saving. We have a lot of beautiful homes in our county. So what do you wish that government knew, different layers above you, if they could learn one thing or what from your experience would you share with them? I would say, this is probably a cop-out, but I was just going to say that we need more money. I was going to ask that. Do you have enough money? Can you use more? Well, the problem with the state demolition funding is it hasn't been consistent. Right? Like they originally offered a pretty substantial amount back in 2014, and that persisted through 2017, but then it dried out until last year when we got the $609,000 grant. So then what do you do in between? Do you just rely on that DTEC funding? Yeah, which at $140,000 a year is not a whole lot to use, right? Because that goes for our operating expenses, and by the time we pay our core operating expenses, we don't really have that much money to tackle anything major. Maybe just 1 or 2 demos. That's it. That's where you've probably been focused more on not doing demos, but then on doing property transfers or cleanups just in between time. And there's no real, like you said, consistency then in terms of plans for demos or projects. Right. It's just whenever the money comes down. Right. So having more of a consistent kind of program or focus towards housing is something that you think other people should learn about. Definitely. And I was happy to see that the state is going to fund the demolition program again with the upcoming budget bill. So previously it wasn't on there. Okay. But now it is. So we know that there's going to be future funding coming down, so you can start to plan with local entities. I'm sure you said 30 or so properties now, but there's a lot more on the list. There's a lot more. So I wasn't involved with that application, but I know that they had just tried to prioritize the worst of the worst structures and the structures that we had legal access to. And that's the other thing, because of the 34, there's undoubtedly properties that are in worse condition around the county, but we had to demonstrate that we had the legal authority to enter onto the premise to carry out a demolition. Right. Property's current in taxes, but it's dilapidated and vacant. Right. There's nothing, kind of going back to your process of property rights. Yep. What do you do? Yep, exactly. Yep. Yeah, there isn't too much that you can. So being delinquent in taxes is actually kind of the path in. Now people can actually donate their properties to you. Yes. Which I don't think a lot of folks know. Deed in lieu of foreclosure. You can do a deed in lieu of foreclosure. Yep, absolutely. And then you can
deduct that from your income tax.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. So that's an incentive to get some donations.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. And then you have to go through the foreclosure process. It's cheaper on our end.
Yeah.
To be able to turn that around, especially if it's vacant.
Right.
But no, I think that event in May will be really exciting just to show the impact that you guys have had over the 10 years.
Right.
And 3 different directors, right, in 10 years?
3 different directors. Yes, I'm the third one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and different focuses, I know, for each time, just based on the funding and the money that's been kind of coming into you as well.
Yep.
So awesome. Well, is there anything else that you think you want to touch on?
So another project that I really want to mention here is our new project on West 4th Street in Ashtabula City. That would be right at the top of Bridge Street on Lake Avenue and West 4th. That was the site of a former elementary school and church. I don't think it was technically an elementary school. I think it was like the
White Church?
Yeah, I think it was like a day, maybe like a Sunday school. Anyway, we demolished the structure last spring, and I would say that this was all done by my predecessor, Eddie Eckert. He had set up that entire project, so all the credit goes to him on that. But they were able to acquire that site, demolish the buildings, pave the way for a redevelopment project, which we went into a year-long feasibility period with a developer, and they just decided to close the deal and purchase the land from us, and they're going to be constructing townhomes as well as a mixed-use facility on the site. So there'll be on the first floor it will have local retail, and above it will have apartments.
Very nice. I know that's a big kind of area for just development.
Yes.
We have, I think, the first new homes have been built in Ashtabula City, right
across the street at the old Harbor High School site. Yep.
Right by Lake Erie, in the middle of our shopping area, right along the river.
Yep.
And that building would probably still be delinquent in terms of taxes, in terms of just vacancies, dilapidated.
Yep.
But you guys took it over then.
Yep, we took it over.
Demolished it, cleaned it.
Yep.
And then kind of be very purposeful with where it goes then after that.
Yes.
And so how do you prioritize then where a property will go? That's an area that can have a lot of different uses.
Yeah. So for that particular site, we went through a request for proposal process where we basically advertised the property to developers and said, give us your best ideas. We then reviewed those ideas with the city of Ashtabula to make sure that we were picking a project that, again, contributed to their community goals for that area. So I think that the project that was selected, I think it's going to be an amazing project. It's going to be a $7 million project too.
Wow.
Yeah.
And those are local. They were local folks. They're from the area.
Yes.
Don't live here now, but they want to invest in the area.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. And this is the first time that I'm actually talking about it publicly because it just closed at the end of March.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. And there's just a lot of different small projects. We're a county of small town kind of things, which is exciting because that's where a lot of your jobs come from. That's where a lot of the pull factor happens, and right by the lake especially.
Yep.
So that'll be a good commercial success story for you guys on top of all of your different residential success stories that you've had.
Right. We're really excited about it because it's a new construction project. It's going to be adding to the housing market in that area.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Well, you guys have a website.
Yeah.
Right, with all your information.
AshtabulaCountyLandbank.com.
Very nice. So people can go see some properties, see what you do, contact information.
Yep.
I know we refer people over to you guys constantly and work together on different things just to try and get the best end result possible. So a good example of kind of working together with all the different entities and local areas and one person, which is with a board, but you do all the running and the legwork and all the administrative side.
Yeah.
But it's fun. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Of course. Thank you, David.
Talking with us. And I highly encourage folks to visit their website, learn more about land banks. Almost every county has one, right? Not all counties.
Last I saw, it was 67.
Okay, and you're heading to a land bank conference right after this.
Right after this, going down to Dayton.
Yeah, so you'll be learning more. Started in Cuyahoga, right?
Yep.
Which makes sense to help clean up, and then really it's kind of spread even in rural areas like ours.
Yeah, because Slavic Village in Cleveland was the epicenter for the nation during the '08
Right.
foreclosure crisis.
I remember hearing that.
Yeah. So that's why the first county land bank was conceived in Cuyahoga County. And when they first passed that statute, it actually only authorized it for Cuyahoga County. It was like a proof of concept. And then once they've demonstrated that it could be successful, then it was opened up.
Interesting.
Yep.
Very nice. Well, thank you again, and thank you for taking the time to listen today.